Hello and welcome everyone to the Eerie Theory Podcast. I am your host, Ashley, and this is episode 1, the first ever. And I hope it goes on and on and on because we're here to talk about all things true crime, paranormal, cryptids, history, conspiracy theories, and everything in between. Pretty much whatever I want to talk about because, well, I'm going to be talking at you and, well, I can. So let's just get into this. Eerie Theory. Well, I love true crime stories, and I think pretty much listening to them is kind of like it's one of those of you listen to them and learn what not to do. And yeah, it's really a lesson. And then you got history. I mean, there's so many murders and there's so many reasons that they happen. And I want to learn about them. I want to tell you about them. So let's get into it. I'm an Arizona native, so I thought I would start out with an Arizona story. And if you're familiar with Arizona, we have a very famous haunted hotel here, Jerome, Arizona. So it is it's pretty much like mid Arizona. So it's this little tiny town. It's pretty renowned now for being a small little ghost town. But back in 1926, a hospital was built, and it was meant to be this very state-of-the-art hospital, very modern, and that's what it became. In 1930, it was actually the most state-of-the-art, most modern hospital in the West. People would come here just for that hospital. And that was because we were pretty much a mining town. And when you have a mining town, you have staffing opportunities, of course. And we had a lot of people flocking this way. But after 1926, United Verde Hospital / Phelps Dodge Hospital, kind of goes back and forth in the names. I'm not sure which came first, chicken or the egg kind of situation. But it unfortunately only had about 25 years up and running, and it closed down in 1950. And everyone was pretty much moving out of town, which makes, the most excellent ghost town. Just everything's abandoned. But it went unused for about 44 years. So it got nice and even more spooky than it already was. And with over 9,000 people dying there, which over 25 years, like maybe that's feasible, but that sounds like a lot to me. And of course, 9,000 deaths, you're bound to get ghosts. So, with it being a hospital to start with, an abandoned hospital, someone came along in 1996 and thought, you know what this would make a great one of? A hotel. Yeah, our guests will never feel alone because look at the spookiness in here. Sounded like a great idea, right? Yeah. So it was purchased by Larry Alter. And Larry, if I'm saying your last name wrong, I'm very, very sorry. I will try to do better, but I'm doing my best. Okay. Still, let's get into it here. The fun parts, the haunted parts. So, like I said, 9,000 people died here. 9,000. That's right. They don't have that many ghosts, I don't think, but 9,000 people. So definitely a hotbed for hauntings, just kind of asking for ghosts. So people, the guests of the hotel, they have reported hearing lovely little sounds in the rooms next to them, in the hallways as well, especially on the 3rd and the 4th floors. Those are where most of these are going to be happening. So if you want to book a room here, go for the 3rd and 4th floor if you're looking for that activity, which I 100% would. Take your little EMF readers, your spirit boxes, go to that 3rd and 4th floor and start talking to some ghosts, all right? And let me know how it goes because I'm a big scaredy cat and you can do it for me, all right? You let me know. So what do people report hearing? They report hearing coughing, heavy breathing, and also heavy breathing. Is that the people that are experiencing that? Is that in the next room that they're hearing it? Like behind a door? Or is it like right by their ear? I always picture it being right by their ear because it's just way creepier for some reason. I don't know. But they also hear babies crying, different voices, different smells, even like cigar smoke, whiskey, flowers. Like I'm starting to think this was an old saloon that was just not reported because this sounds like some kind of cowboy. And maybe he's waiting on a lady with those flowers. I don't know, maybe. But this is happening mostly in vacant rooms. The guests will get so concerned, they will call down to the front desk or just get so annoyed, probably just heavy breathing. That would annoy me too. I would be calling the front desk, telling them like, hey, can you make your guest shut up, please? I'm trying to sleep here. Jeez. But my least favorite of all, because there is nothing more unnerving than a small child ghost. Yes, a small child ghost. He is reported to be about 4 or 5, and he's seen running, crying, and giggling. I don't know which is worse. I feel like the giggling becomes way worse because, like maybe you see the kid, but they suddenly disappear, but all you hear is giggling in the air. That's terrifying. What plan do they have? That sounds like an evil plan. Something is about to happen. Something ominous. No, thank you. But the absolute worst of all, people have also reported seeing this small kid standing at the foot of their beds while they're sleeping, just staring, super casual. I don't know what he wants, but maybe he's looking for mommy or something. I don't know, but it's creepy. And I say, no, thank you. No, thank you to that child. Please get out. But the sounds of the baby happen to be more alarming to guests, it seems, because that's who the front desk gets most calls about. And it always seems to be in a vacant room. And of course, they go in, they check, and there's no baby, which is good, but also very, very unnerving. I don't know about that. Maybe I won't stay here. I don't know. Jerome, you sound spooky. You draw me in with the spookiness, but with the small children, no, thank you. No. But there are also reports of TVs turning off randomly, even when they're not plugged in. Same with the lamps. Even someone reported having only the lamp on while it looked like the rest of the power was out. So that's fun. Also, shampoo bottles or other objects around the room are flung across the room or rolled across the room, as in someone is rolling them, not just whoops, they fell. No, someone is rolling them across the room. Doors will also give off big sounds from opening and closing, even when no one is in the room. Guest electronics go missing and somehow always reappear dead center underneath the bed, which I feel like that ghost is just wanting you to be present in the moment, just paying attention to your beautiful Jerome surroundings. They're like, you don't need these. Just take a look around at this beauty. And I mean, I feel like that's just them caring, or they're just messing with you and they really don't like that you have an iPhone. They're really more Android ghosts. Okay. So, but yeah, they do find their items, but they just happen to be dead center underneath the bed. And then staff, of course, let's get to that. Especially on the graveyard shift, they hear coughing, sneezing from the hotel laundry room. And let me give you this. I have worked in a hotel. At night, there are 0 people in that laundry room. It is probably the spookiest room you can go into. It's empty, it's silent. There should be no sounds of coughing or sneezing or anything. It's spooky enough on its own. We don't need the extra sounds, okay? But they also will see shadows in some areas, and suddenly they go to check for a person. There's no one there, but the shadow is still there. But they have a theory on who it is. So, shall we get into the ghost? I think we should. Let's go. So, the first ghost that people see most often is Claude Harvey, and he was the hospital's handyman who died in, April 3rd of 1935. And he was suspected to be murdered. And I thought, that's weird because he was, it sounded like he was all by himself at night on the night shift. But he was found pinned by the back of his neck. And by looking at the pictures, they have this in the tour now where they have the outline of where his body was found. And I'll post this on social media. It's going to be on Eerie Theory on Instagram. And you can see this picture where his head was the only thing underneath the elevator. And the elevator that they had there is pretty famous. It's the Otis Elevator. And it's known for being specifically for hospitals. It moves a little slower than most normal hospitals. So you think anyone that would be awake and not be pinned would move their head. So that's part of the reason it's suspected to be murder. But his head was found underneath the elevator, but the rest of his body completely out. So it was suspected that Claude was murdered and his body was placed under the elevator, though. So I couldn't find exactly the reasoning behind the cause of his death. And that was just because an autopsy was not allowed to be performed and no x-ray was taken because the company that owned the hotel at the time, the United Verde Copper Company, they didn't want any suspicion pointing in their direction, which sounds a little suspicious. And I feel like they should be the first one that should have been looked at after they said, no, thank you. We don't want that. Like, that's suspicious, right? Right? No, just me? Okay. But they didn't want it pointed towards them as an accident or murder. So they're probably just trying to avoid some lawsuits. I don't know how they worked in that time, but they said no, thank you. And for some reason had complete say on that. But even the coroner said that the elevator could not have caused his death. And that is really all we know. Suspected murder, but probably not from the elevator. Yeah. But people have seen him not only in the laundry room, but wandering around the broiler room in the stairwells like he's working, which sounds like the saddest afterlife ever. Like, just for eternity, working and working and working. There's so many ghosts, just that's all they do. They're just working, doing their best. Please don't let that be my afterlife. But he only appears to be a shadow, not a full apparition. No one has ever seen a full apparition of him, but they suspect it's him, I'm assuming, by the shape of it and where he's at and what he's doing. So let's see. Also, the next ghosts are two unknown ladies, one in a white gown, probably a patient, and one in a nurse's uniform. And they will be seen wandering around what used to be the patient halls. And then there's another group of a doctor or a nurse in a long lab coat carrying a clipboard roaming the halls, once again, working in the afterlife. These poor people just trapped in their forever jobs. No, thank you. Because that's really just the last thing I want to do in my afterlife. But two psychics have visited and said that they spoke to this head nurse, one of the ones that was wandering around, and she is mostly seen in what is now the Asylum restaurant that rents out the first floor / the lounge. But the psychic was saying that she had spoken to the head nurse and she was actually very upset with the removal of the desks that were in what used to be the dispensary area, aka like the pharmacy area, and tables were removed, put into storage. So they still were available, but they had since been removed. And if you have heard any ghost stories, ghosts don't like when you start moving stuff or doing construction on their homes. They don't like that. So don't do that. Yeah, but she was not very happy, and that's why she was causing a ruckus down in that lounge. But since then, the desks have been moved back, and she's had no complaints ever since. So apparently, she just wanted her desk back. They're still there, apparently, as of 2022. And she has not really made a move since. So I guess that's all she wanted. Maybe that was her unfinished business. Who knows? But my favorite ghost of all, who I absolutely want a visit from when I'm there. No one knows where it came from, but it is a little ghost cat. Oh, how precious, isn't it? The only picture they have of ghosts, as I understand, is on their front desk, and it's of the ghost cat, a very clear one taken by a guest in 2008. I don't know if they have a name for him, but I absolutely think they should. But what a little precious baby, right? But yeah, no one knows where he came from, if he died on the property or whatnot, but he's happy there. So he's just hanging around in guest rooms and whatnot. But guests and staff both have reported hearing meowing, hissing, purring, scratching at the doors and walls. But when they go to investigate, nothing's there. So, typical cat. Wants your attention until you actually give it attention, then it runs away. So it's just living its best life, okay? Or afterlife, I should say. But people also will feel the cat rubbing up against their leg. Nothing's there. And my absolute favorite, it will snuggle them in bed. And the reason they think it's the cat that they feel is when they go to look at the bedspread, they'll see an imprint of a little kitty curled up, a little kitty shape, which I think is absolutely precious. It just loves people and wants to be near them. Oh, but so this famous picture in 2008 was taken in room 20. So if you are going there and the only ghost you can handle is a ghost kitty, room 20 is the one. It apparently appears in other rooms, but 120 is where we have this picture evidence. So I think that will be the room I will absolutely be staying in. I love kitties in this life and the afterlife. It's just so sweet. But this kitty was just sitting on the table, pretty much posing for this picture. I think that's just precious. But most of the deaths there, besides this cat, were during the hospital days, either from illness or injury. And like I said, total of 9,000 deaths. We're bound to get some ghosts. Only one of the deaths occurred after the hospital shut down. And that was I am going to butcher this name and I apologize. Menno Hofpair. He was hired by Phelps Dodge Mining Company, who owned the hospital originally and owned it through its disrepair in 1950 and acted as a caretaker because, of course, you have an abandoned building. You want a caretaker if you own it to take care of it and make sure you keep out vandals and anyone that's wanting to steal stuff from it. Yeah, it makes sense. But can you say The Shining? Are we not getting vibes like that? Yeah, he was all alone and he was getting real creeped out, got visited by some of the ghosts, and it was ruled a suicide in 1982. He was found hanging from a steam pipe in the engineer's office. So again, another hotbed area in this hotel for some ghostly activity. So go there with your EMF. If you are a guest there, they do allow for private tours, but only if you are a guest. So even though the restaurant on the bottom floor is called the Asylum, the hospital was never actually an asylum or exclusive for tuberculosis patients, which are a lot of the rumors even I've heard here in Arizona. I have heard both of those. And I, even up until I did this story, totally thought it was an asylum at one point. But apparently that is 100% incorrect. It was never an asylum, just for it was a general hospital, basically, where a lot of minor accidents, illnesses of the time. Yes, they had TB patients, but it wasn't exclusive. So that's a little bit of the history. Now, only guests are allowed on guest floors. So like I said, book a room if you want to do a ghost tour. From most of my sources, which Wikipedia, Jerome's own website, Phoenix Ghost, Reddit, and History.com, they are now saying that the most haunted rooms are room 20, room 32, and pretty much the entire third and fourth floor. But room 32 is apparently the absolute most haunted in the hotel, where the things that I said above were really, they saw them all in this room. So including the recording equipment failure. So if you're going ghost hunting, just be prepared to have your equipment fail. Just know it's going to happen. Doors opening and closing right in front of people. Footsteps shuffling on the bathroom tile, which that is terrifying. Like, at least walk normal. Come on. Water faucets turning on with no one being in the room. And the desk clerk told, some people I don't know if they were guests, but they were off one of the sources, one of these websites, told her that the apparitions she had seen were mainly of Claude Harvey, is what is suspected. So that is the wonderful Jerome Grand Hotel. If you want to be a little spooked out, go book a room, get some tours, and then send me pictures. The big scaredy cat over here that loves ghosts. I swear I will stay there one day. Maybe. It may be a short stay. Because after hearing about these ghost children, that will do me in. I will leave immediately if I see one, especially staring at me from the foot of the bed. No, why, child? Why are you doing this? Please don't go. Okay. Well, that is the end of episode 1. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I will be back next week with episode number 2. And it's probably going to be a nice little true crime story. So stay posted and I will see you next week. Thank you guys and have a wonderful week.